Hey there, folks. Seth and Ryan here again from Go to Market Advisors, bringing you another installment of our series on empowering frontline leaders to take back their time and make themselves more effective. Ryan, want to kick us off with what the topic is for today?
Sure. So the topic today is really as you think about time management as a whole, what are some of the key elements to time management? And there's two components we want to discuss today. One is the concept of time blocking. So instead of your calendar just being a whole host of different things, where you actually manage blocks of times that are dedicated to a specific component. And then secondarily, and maybe more importantly, is the concept of using preparation to ensure that the meetings and other areas that you spend your time is as effective as possible.
Yeah. So we talked about this in the last video, but I think it's a good thing for you to do. So pull up your calendar right now and audit it. Do you have any time blocks on your calendar? And if you don't, do you have prep meetings on your calendar? And as you look at those and you think and you're honest with yourself, when you have time blocks or you don't, do you have dedicated time for yourself to prepare for the meetings that you need to have? So most meetings have a one-on-one, most managers have a team meeting, most managers have a forecasting. That might be weekly, that might be bi-weekly, but majority of managers, they have that structured cadence in play. But if you look at most managers' calendars, they don't have any time to prepare for those meetings. And so if you think about the importance of your role, your job isn't to do the rep's job. It's to empower them to be successful. And you can't empower somebody to be successful if you're not prepping for those meetings to coach them on. So you might be coaching them on pipeline management. You might be coaching them on sales effectiveness. So as you think about your calendar, you have to have time to prep for things. Otherwise, you're going into those meetings and you're just asking for inputs, which is majority of one-on-ones is, hey, where's that deal at? What's going on with this? Why aren't you doing X? Instead of empowering that rep to be successful and saying, hey, I went through all of your deals. Let's talk about these two deals that I think we have a chance to win. I want to help you with the deal strategy here.
So Seth, I think you're touching on a good topic, but okay, I'm looking at my calendar and I'm kind of booked back to back. The next 4, 5, 6, 7 business days. I don't really have the space to do the prep. So, what would you suggest in that scenario?
You have to prioritize that time. You have to go through those 6 or 7 time blocks and ask yourself, I think the prioritization I would go through is, one, does it have an agenda to it? 2, is it about a deal or is it something internal that I can push off? And then 3, you need to look at week over week. What have you committed yourself to that you can strip away?
Yeah.
Because if there is something that's critically important, which is preparation for your team, you should deprioritize other things of, joining an early stage discovery call, for example.
Yeah, I think the other thing that we've at least witnessed and seen, through the number of engagements we've been a part of, is for a lot of organizations, managers' meeting time is very heavily ad hoc. You're basically just winging the meeting. You might be 6, 8, 10 minutes into the meeting before you even know why the rep scheduled it. So to Seth's point, the agenda helps eliminate some of that, but preparation is essential. When you think about meetings with your team, the meetings should be practice, they should be strategy, they should be action oriented. You should not have meetings to disseminate information.
Yeah.
That if you had a call for 40 minutes, that's what Gong is for. That's what the tools are for. Review the call, then have a meeting to say, well, what are we going to do about it? Didn't seem like this VP was engaged, or it sounds like for us to win this deal, we've got to go cover this hurdle. How are we going to cover that hurdle? Don't spend 20 minutes talking about the hurdle. Spend 20 minutes figuring out what to do about it. So I think as you think about the preparation, the goal is, particularly when you have meetings on your calendar that involve a lot of people, if you have a whole team meeting, you've got to prepare to make sure that when you've got 7, 8, 10 people sitting there, dedicated attention on you, you make the most of it. So that's
the piece that comes up quite a bit, and making this real, like we try to in all these videos, is we understand that if you got 6 or 7 people on your team, you probably have 30, 40 Slack messages in between meetings. You need to set the stage for your team that your job isn't to respond to every Slack in 2 minutes. And so if your thought process as a manager, and I felt that before in roles that we've taken on an interim basis, where I have to respond to every Slack message, you don't. Now, if it's a contract and a quarter, you're trying to push things through, yeah, maybe you're going to block off a little bit more dedicated time. But when you actually think about prepping, block off the time and block out the noise. Turn your phone off. Just focus on that time to be present in preparation for that key meeting. Otherwise, you're always going to be distracted and everything's going to feel like a priority when everything isn't a priority.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the last thing to think about as you try to incorporate more preparation, is really just thinking about really what's going to move the needle. And I think one of the challenges that managers have is they always feel overwhelmed and just consumed by the amount of work. Part of the reason for that is you're going from so many things back to back to back to back that you're disoriented. You know, if
Yeah.
you've got 7 or 8 reps and each rep is working 10 deals, that's 70 pieces of business. You can't ad hoc keep that all straight in your head. And so what you've got to do is prepare for those meetings. So when you're in them and when you're spending time, that you've given yourself a chance to get your mind around something. I think sometimes we underutilize how important that thoughtful consideration is. And you can't do thoughtful consideration when every 2 minutes someone's sending you a Slack. You just need to give yourself some space to think.
Right.
And what you may find out is by taking some of those meetings away, you actually get more done because you're just in the mindset and you're prepared to have those conversations
And find the time whenever those time blocks are appropriate. Try not to put them in between. You have 2 meetings in a row, and then you have a 30-minute break, and then another meeting, or 2 meetings after that. Try to put it to where you have concerted amount of time. For me, I like the early mornings, and I like in the afternoons. So if you can block those off and say, "Hey, I'm not going to take a client meeting here unless it's an urgent or support issue," try to find those blocks of time that are appropriate for you to actually focus. If you're just going to give yourself 15 minutes, I mean, it takes you 10 minutes to decompress from that last meeting. So hopefully you enjoyed this. Again, audit your calendar, look and see if you have time blocks. There's no perfect method to the madness, but the more time that you give yourself to prepare for those critical meetings, the better they're going to be. And then the last tip that's just come up quite a bit is if you're going to talk the entire team meeting, don't have a team meeting. Just leave it at that. Be gone with it. Don't do it. So that's another helpful tip from Go-To-Market Advisors. Hopefully you're enjoying the series. Stay tuned for some more installments coming up here shortly.